The Syntax of Things by Arisha. Chapter 11. Wisdom. Diversions. Right as though Snape would answer, part of him told Harry that he should wait outside, another part told him to just leave and forget the matter altogether. He was entirely unconvinced by both options. Determined to not give a damn about Snape's show of nonchalance, he stubbornly opened the door and walked in. Snape was there, sitting with his back against the headboard, his gaze peering at Harry, as though contemplating with which way to kill him. "What do you want, Potter?" Harry took a look around and shrugged, pretending to have never been in the room before.
"Had some questions,"
he simply said. There was a small bookshelf by the bed, and Harry approached it curiously. It didn't have more than 5 or 6 books on it, and they all looked old. He ran his finger across their backs, a layer of dust sticking on his finger.
"What are these? Your favorites?"
A pause. "The most important ones."
"Potions?"
"Literature." Harry pulled out a book to take a closer look. The cover was blank and plain, with no title, pictures, or patterns. Inside, it was empty like a brand new notebook. He pushed it back in place, disappointed.
"Why do you spell them blank?"
"They're private, obviously." Snape's usual bitterness was not quite absent. It seemed to have taken a slight shift, however. Harry shrugged and looked around once more. Failing to find any other surface in the room to sit on, he collapsed on the other side of the bed, careful to stay as far from Snape as possible. Snape turned his head to him, his gaze as dangerous as ever. Harry ignored him. He took a moment to scowl at how this bed was much softer than the one Snape was making him sleep on, and then he stared at the ceiling. It was quite interesting, honestly. 2 twisted pipes ran up the wall to disappear through a hole in the corner. The blaster was cracked in various places, and green patches of mold seemed to be growing at the most damaged spots.
"How old is this place?"
Harry asked. "Quite."
"We have mold back home, too, you know. Aunt Petunia made me rub it clean once. It took me 2 days up on a ladder with a brush and a bucket and all, but it was worth it. The ceiling was clean again afterwards."
Snape didn't answer. Harry toyed with the drawstring of his tracksuit's waistband awkwardly. The heaviness of the silence was distracting, like a thick rope tightening around him, threatening to crush his chest. Harry felt the urge to fill it with something useful before Snape kicked him out.
"My uncle is one of those men who sit in a room and you could feel it,"
he said in a low voice, picking up a random thought.
"It's that simmer, I think. He has that sense around him, like some unpredictable force or something that might break loose at any moment and do something terrible. He hates magic. I was raised up thinking my parents died in a car crash."
Vulnerable. That was what he felt like for having spilled this out to Snape. And dumb. Definitely dumb. "Get out. Now."
"Why?"
Harry bolted up and rounded the bed before Harry could register what happened. "Why? You dare ask me why in my own home, my own house, Potter? Because I say so. Because I demand so. Because you're utterly unwelcome here, and because the last thing I could possibly want is the sickening sympathy of a Potter. Your father enjoyed that too with all this—" "Oh, leave my father out of it." "Did you enjoy what you saw, Potter? Did you help him?"
"What? No!"
Harry sat up and glared with disbelief as his patience gave way to a fiery rage. Snape bared his teeth. "Liar!
"I'm not. You... Look, listen. I didn't even know he was your father. He just stormed in. I didn't know what to do."
"What did he tell you?" Snape loomed over him.
Harry shrugged. "Nothing."
"What did he tell you, Potter?"
"Nothing, really. That he used to live here. Just that."
Snape's eyes promised death, but he said nothing. He peered at him intensely before sitting down next to him. Harry's gaze caught Snape's wand hand twitching, and he once again regretted not having his own wand with him. Although it was obvious to him, Harry felt the need to state something that perhaps wasn't all that obvious to Snape.
"You know, not all muggles are like him."
Snape jerked his head as though shaking off an irritating fly. "Don't be stupid."
"When was the last time you saw him?"
He wasn't sure if he should ask that. Snape's jaw muscles tensed, and Harry was once again reminded that one should never feel relaxed around Snape. His rage was so unpredictable. How could Dumbledore not have second thoughts about him?
"The summer after my 7th year. He tried to get me out. He regretted it." "Oh,"
Harry said a bit quickly.
"I'm sorry."
He shouldn't have asked. The clock's tick-tocks reached Harry's ears one by one like distant but firm gunshots. Snape turned his head and looked at him. His eyes darkened, and for a moment Harry was disoriented by their intensity. He cupped Harry's chin firmly and turned his face towards the dim light of the window. "What is that?" he asked roughly.
What?
Harry's hands almost flew up to his own face in worry when he remembered the slap. Damn!
Oh, it's nothing. I sort of, fell.
The lie was pathetic, and Snape didn't look like buying it either. He let go of his face with what seemed like disgust and looked away. Snape exhaled sharply. "Is it too much of me to ask that Dumbledore does not hear about this?" Harry chuckled softly. If he wanted to embarrass Snape, he already had way too much information to use against him, and his father would be the least private one to use. The thing was, if he wanted to embarrass Snape, he would have already done it.
"I'm not telling anyone."
Snape nodded. Harry nodded too, rubbing his cheek reflexively with the back of his hand, where he assumed the red mark was. It didn't hurt, and he definitely didn't like that Snape had noticed it. Harry was about to tell him that he really was fine, when his attention was drawn to something entirely different. Something sparkled between Snape's fingers as Snape clenched and unclenched his fist. Harry could have imagined it. He looked again. Snape was holding something. It looked like a thin line of white light at first, like a shadow shifting through his fingers, faint and shimmery. Then Harry realized that it was a ring, small, silver, with a tiny cracked stone on top, and small diamonds lined around it. Despite the feeling of anger that swept through him for the way Snape treated him, Harry could not help but feel curious at the sight of it. He shifted closer and reached out carefully, his hand hovering over Snape's.
"May I?"
Harry slowly buried his hand between Snape's and took the ring. Snape's touch had warmed it up. Harry brushed his thumb against it, savoring the strange sensation.
"It's beautiful."
"It's stolen," Snape said coldly before snatching it back. He threw it into the nightstand's drawer and released a breath. "We will not practice today. Read the book I gave you, clear your mind, and when you finish, occupy yourself with something that does not involve me." Harry snorted. He reached for his notebook and threw it on Snape's lap. If Snape thought that he was going to stay here alone all day long and continue being miserable, he was mistaken. Harry had done this too many times for Sirius. It never worked, even if he was still doing it.
"But I need your help with something,"
Harry said.
"I started working on this defense scroll just a few days ago, and my notes are all over the place. It's my birthday in 2 weeks, and I want them finished by then, but I'm barely done with the outline as it is. I was kind of hoping you'd take a look."
Snape opened the notebook. Harry directed him to the right page. "Common defense theory?" Snape asked, scowling. "You failed in that!"
"I didn't fail. I just need to write an extra scroll on it, I guess."
Snape exhaled hard and then squinted, trying to make out Harry's poor handwriting. "Very well, let's see what you've written."
"What are these? Your favorites?"
"Yes." "The most important ones."
"Potions?"
"Literature." Snape was painfully aware of the annoying voice addressing him, and he mentally pushed it off. He damned himself for being unable to shut his ears against it. While the boy enjoyed his little exploration around the room, Severus silently cursed both Potter and Tobias to rot in hell. Together, if possible, so they can have the chance to tell each other tales of woe. He supposed he should be glad he had restrained his urge towards violence. It wouldn't do to punch the shit out of the bastard again. Wizards like Severus didn't do that. Sick drunks like Tobias did that. And to think that he wanted the ring, that he had the nerve to come and ask for it. It was beyond any question, beyond any shadow of a doubt, the only thing he'd ever offered his wife without expecting something in return. The distinct line between what could be done with magic and what couldn't never interested Tobias much. He regarded it as some kind of God-given gift, and, of course, he wanted to take advantage of it. It had taken him a few months to chew down the information and to accept that his wife was a witch. He refused to believe it at first. Then he was faced with undeniable proof, and, as it happens, things changed. After the initial shock had subsided, his denial slowly gave place to contempt. He saw an opportunity in her abilities, a way to improve his life without so much as lifting a finger. It was all downhill from there. The drinking started first, and then the gambling. It became a common occurrence for Tobias to demand from her to summon money or food out of nowhere, expecting it to be easy, expecting it to be possible. It wasn't, and so more often than not, he'd get pissed and attack her because she'd failed to give him what he wanted. It had come down to a ministry penalty, an interrogation, and a clear warning that they confiscate her wand to finally put an end to it. Apparently, trying to transform random Muggle objects into cash wasn't as legal as Tobias would have liked. There was Eileen's theory, too, of course, that contradicted every logical assumption. He wasn't always like that. He was kind once. Charming. Nonsense. Severus believed only what he saw, and Tobias was never kind or charming or even tolerable. But she wanted it that way, and she was too weak to see his faults or grow any dignity around him. It wasn't surprising, of course, that she got depressed long before Severus started school. Once her condition had severely weakened her magic, it was up to Severus to do the job. But Severus didn't, for he hated him, and at that point, he hated his mother too, for her weakness, for her stubbornness to stay with Tobias no matter what, for her insistence to always deny that she was a victim in his hands. She was better than him. She'd always been better than him, but she was weak. Severus was aware of the mattress sinking beside him and a body slumping against the pillows. A not-so-distant aspect of his conscience told him that he should yell at the boy, but he felt drained from all power. He decided to let him be. There was that thing again. The boy had that fresh, fruity scent around him, which made Severus dizzy whenever he smelled it. It was openly challenging him to fight down his most strong impulses to vomit. He had become quite used to it as the days passed by, and since he had never seen any perfume in the bathroom, he reckoned that this was just the way Harry Potter smelled. "How old is this place?" Potter asked. The question took him by surprise. He blinked as he counted. "Quite." And now Potter was saying something again. It occurred to him that he was supposed to be listening. "I will not. Get out, now." "Why?" "Why? You dare ask me why in my own room, my own house, Potter? Because I say so. Because I demand so. Because you're utterly unwelcome here, and because the last thing I could possibly want is the sickening sympathy of a Potter. Your father enjoyed that too with all this, 'Oh, leave my father out of it.' Didn't you enjoy what you saw, Potter? Didn't you help him?" Potter wrinkled his forehead. "What? No. Liar." Potter was talking again, but Severus was not interested. His hand twitched around the ring, and he fought the urge to reach down and place the pillow against Potter's babbling mouth until beautiful, divine silence filled the room again. "What did he tell you?" "Nothing." "What did he tell you, Potter?" "Nothing, really. That he used to live here. Just that." It didn't seem like he was going to get a better answer. He sat down defeated. "You know, not all Muggles are like him." And yet they were. "Don't be stupid." "When was the last time you saw him?" "Oh, John, more questions. Don't answer that." "The summer after my 7th year. He tried to kick me out. He regretted it." "Bravo, Severus. You are so rigorous." "Oh, I'm sorry." Severus turned to look at him. His eyes locked with Potter's, and for a moment he was dumbstruck at the realization that he was sitting on his bed with Harry Bloody Potter beside him, his glimmering green eyes piercing his own with something that didn't quite look like hate. Then he saw something else. It wasn't the slightly swollen skin that he noticed first, for it was not that bad, but the fading redness of fingers that covered his cheekbone was too familiar to miss. He grasped Potter's chin as panic rushed over him. "What is this?" "What?" Potter was unaware of it, and perhaps it was better if it stayed that way. He could spell it away before the boy went to a mirror. Bullshit, he'd need to wipe his memory too, but that would be even worse. Potter's eyes widened, and then averted. "Oh, it's nothing. I sort of, fell." The same excuse always, wasn't it? He wouldn't be able to explain this to Dumbledore. He had put protection spells all around the house to keep away every wizard alive, but it was a Muggle that had made it in. Unprofessional. Inexcusable. "Is it too much of me to ask that Dumbledore does not hear about this?" Potter chuckled. It was a warm chuckle, one of someone who thought that the answer should be obvious. "I'm not telling anyone." The "don't worry" behind it was almost too loud against the walls, and it crashed back along with memories of a forgotten sense of calmness. Lily had the gift of tranquilizing one's worries without ever talking directly about them. She would dig her way between the lines and soothe his deepest fears, without needing to know them, without having to understand them. When he felt the hand between his own, he almost flinched. "May I?" Potter asked. He let him take the ring, although for the life of him, he couldn't explain why. "We will not practice today.
Read the book I gave you, clear your mind, and when you finish, occupy yourself with something that does not involve me. But I need your help with something.
Of course.
I started working on this defense scroll just a few days ago, and my notes are all over the place. It's my birthday in 2 weeks, and I want it finished by then, but I'm barely done with the outline as it is. I was kind of hoping you'd take a look.
A notebook was thrown at him before he could argue, and he opened it. Unbelievable. Common defense theory. You failed in that. Was the boy completely daft?
I didn't fail. I just need to write an extra scroll about it, I guess.
Pathetic. Absurd. Laughable. It was the easiest chapter of the entire book. With Umbridge teaching it, of course, it was a miracle that some students had managed to pass at all. And something was telling him that Potter needed to be taught everything all over again. Damn professionalism! While at Severus's care, Potter was strictly prohibited from being thick-headed. Very well. Let's see what you've written.